Welcome everyone to another session of Virtual Internships Career Webinars. My name is Mirta Aguirre, I'm the head of employability and coaching, and I'm the host of our series. Tonight we have our Expert Insight series, and for that we have a great speaker with a great presentation for today. So let's discover what we're gonna talk about today. So today we have Mateo, who will speak about the power of stories in our professional development. And so for us to understand who Mateo is, let me tell you a little bit about our author, our speaker. So Mateo is passionate about helping others find ideas of their own. Early in his professional career, he was dedicated to training developers looking for the first job. In the last 3 years, he has coordinated the Argentina TED-Ed Clubs program, developing communication and idea building skills in teenagers and adults. You probably have heard of TEDx, TED Talks. So this is a great speaker because he's very knowledgeable. And so let's see what we're going to discover today. We need to move to the previous one. So in today's sessions, you will understand the power of ideas. You will discover practical tips for creating impactful narratives. And you will also learn how to use a little bit of storytelling to answer challenging interview questions. And all the rest we're going to discover today with a very interesting conversation we're going to have with Mateo. Mateo, welcome, and thank you very much for being here today.
Well, thanks, Mirta. Thank you very much, Virtual Internships, also for inviting me. First of all, I want to say that everyone thinks that because I work at TED, I'm going to be a great speaker, but today I'm not speaking my native language. So if somebody doesn't understand anything of what I say, just let me know through the chat, and we'll clarify it. So yeah, thank you very much, Mirta, for inviting me. I'm very glad to be here and hope this conversation helps everyone that is joining us today from all different parts of the world. It's great.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very excited because I think this is a very interesting topic. Who hasn't seen a TED Talk, right? I think all of us have watched a TED Talk, and probably we have all felt this very engaging energy, right? That always we can find in a TED Talk. We see someone on stage, and then there's something we're drawn to. So I guess that considering your experience, my first question would be if you can share a little bit about your experience, right? Preparing talks in the TED format, what this entails, what is the process like, and what do you find like the most rewarding, right? Because I understand TED Talks have like a specific format. Maybe you can tell us about it.
Yeah, of course. So first of all, let me tell you that I work at Clubes TED Argentina. That is like the educational program from TED. That I have to go backwards to tell you how this program was born. Basically, when we did the TED Talks, we saw that the audience was mobilized, like very, I don't know how to say, like, for example, atravesada, movilizada. Help me with that one.
Very moved, very
transformed.
engaged.
Yeah, the audience was transformed while listening to a TED Talk. But what we realized the most is that the most transformed person when creating a TED Talk is the speaker itself, herself. So we realized and we asked ourselves the question of what happens if we take some things of the process of creating a TED Talk and we propose the schools and the teachers to guide their students to create their own TED Talks. So that's how Clubes TED-Ed was born. Let me show you a presentation very briefly. I'm not finding it now. Oh, here.
I think that's so important, right? And the fact that schools offer the possibility to train as TED speakers to their students. Wow, that sounds really powerful.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really powerful in terms of training speaker abilities, in terms of communication and of listening too, because we are very used to think as RSC as something in which a speaker just sends or delivers a message, but also when we share ideas, it's very important to train our listening and feedback skills, and that is something we really do at Clubes TED-Ed. So just very briefly, for everyone to know, TED is a global organization that is dedicated to spread ideas worth sharing. That's how we say it. And Clubes TED-Ed, as I told you, is our educational program that happens globally, but here in Argentina, we have a license to manage the program locally, of course, always in coordination with TED. And what happens when you, how does Clubes TED-Ed work? Basically, a teacher asks for a license in which they say, okay, I want to open a TED-Ed club in my school, and I want to facilitate the process of creating a TED Talk with my students. So this is very cultural changing for the schools, because the students talk about the topics they want to. The curriculum doesn't say what you're going to talk about. So what we do is try to focus on creating ideas of our own. Like the students share and create ideas of their own. And that's the most important part of the process. And that's a key concept that we have here at TED that I want to share very briefly with you. So what is an idea? Because we tend to think that an idea is an eureka moment in which you find the solution to a very big problem. But no, here at TED, we think that an idea is something that is my personal point of view on a topic that we all share. So I'm gonna share with you some of the key definitions that we use to share what is an idea. And later on, you will understand why I'm paying attention to this. Because when we talk about presentations or public speaking, the main idea of what we are going to share is a very important thing. So at TED, we used to say that an idea is a new pair of glasses to see the world. For example, if you are used to think about a specific topic, for example, I don't know, democracy. Okay, we all have some ideas of what democracy is. But how, for example, Mirta or Chelsea that I see here sees democracy is a very specific point of view that was built based on my own experience. And what we do at TED is try to create that idea that at first you think like, well, this is what I think about democracy. So I'm going to create a new pair of glasses to share with the other ones how I see democracy. So it's always a personal point of view based on your personal experience. Also, an idea could be to connect things that didn't seem connected at first. Okay, so for example, there's a very good example of the luggage that didn't used to have like the wheels. We used to have bags that we used to carry with our own hands, and on the other side we had the wheels that were used for different purposes. So we used to think that an idea is try to reinvent the wheel when that is not necessary. Maybe you can cross two things and create a new one. And if you combine luggage with wheels, you can have like the carry-on, you know? So sometimes an idea is also to connect two things that may not seem connected at first, okay? So, and also the third point is that an idea is an idea depending always on the context. So if I'm sharing something that is not new for the people that is listening to me, maybe that is not an idea in that context. But if we move that idea to a different one, well, in that context, it could be an idea. Okay, so the newness, I don't know how novedad of the
the novelty, right?
Yeah, that's important also. So yeah, that is what I do. That's where I come from, and I love to work at TED because you are always working with people from very different and diverse disciplines. I work with scientifics, with teachers, with engineers, like a very vast variety of professions.
Amazing. And for in your experience, like what is the most challenging for the speakers, or the most rewarding for specifically for the audience you work with, which are high school students, right?
Yeah, well, I also work with adult speakers,
Okay.
but the process of finding an idea is a very artisanal, like
Yeah,
handcrafted,
artisanal. Yes.
yeah, process in which basically I start asking questions to the speaker. For example, I don't know. Last year, I was coaching a astronomer from the USA. That works with the James Webb telescope. That is a very big telescope. And okay, so you have a topic, you have a lot of things to say about a telescope, but to find the idea is a different process. It's like, what specifically do you think about what you do that may be useful for other people in other contexts? So during the process of conversating with the speaker, a lot of intimacy is built. And when the idea appears, when the personal point of view appears, that is all like usually linked to their personal experience, that's like the most rewarding moment of the process. Because so if you say like, okay, we found the idea I want to share is that, for example, I don't know, fear can be seen from very different points of view. I don't know, just for you to give you an example. That is your checkered flag, like the point you want to take the people to. And once you have the idea, you can create the script. Okay, so moving maybe now to how to create presentations. When you know specifically what you want the people to think when they leave your presentation, you know what previous steps you have to give in order to take the people there. Okay, so that's a very, very rewarding moment. The most challenging, sometimes when you're coaching a speaker, you think that, I don't know, for example, Mirta, you talk a lot of different languages, and we are thinking about creating a TED Talk, your TED Talk about your polyglot, you say?
Yes.
Polyglossy, I don't know how to say it. And I'm coaching you, and in a moment, I find the idea of your TED Talk. Well, that's a very challenging moment because the idea must come from you. It must not come from the coach, from you, or from or it must come from the exchange of ideas that we are sharing. So as a coach, it's hard to say to not say the other one what the idea is, and to make the other one find it by themselves. And it happens a lot with teenagers too in schools.
You know what I find very interesting, because like making the connection to the professional world, and how the important how communication is an essential skill for every aspect of our lives, and specifically for our career. Like you were saying, like an idea is where I want to get my audience, right? The person who is listening to me. And I was thinking, what came to mind was my meetings with my boss one-on-one. Whenever I want to introduce something that I want her to accept, there's also this process, right? Because I share this idea, and then I need to move her into make her accept this, right? So I think that my next question, thinking also how we can relate to this, is how can we make a presentation, an idea truly engaging? What can you tell us about what is it like
Yeah,
it has to
yeah,
have?
yeah. It's a very good question. Let me say that it's not a recipe in terms of if you do this, you're going to reach success. But there are some key points that I can share with you that actually I prepared today for this presentation that may be helpful for you to create presentations. Rather, you use a presentation in terms of Google Slides, for example, or if you are going to make an essay, an oral essay, some things that are like general, that can be useful for you in the moment you have to create a presentation. So first of all, what we used to say at TED that may be useful for very different contexts is to pay special attention to the beginning and the end of the presentation. Okay, so it's not only to involve yourself more in that moments of the presentation, but also to have them in mind. if I know exactly where I want to start from and what is my last point where I want to take you, that will order the whole presentation. Okay, so once we know I want to get there, I will know what are the previous points I must take the audience to in order to connect the dots. Okay, so and also what is very important about this is that statistically, the beginning and the end of a presentation are the most remembered parts. So
Yes.
they are two very important moments of the presentation. Okay, so and something that is very important here is that I say it in a metaphor, is that if you are going to enter the stage with a fishing pole and you're gonna leave it there, okay, so you presented something at the beginning, then you're gonna have to use it, because if you just use the fishing pole to cap attention from the audience, they're going to be expecting something from you. So we must use it. Recently I was coaching a speaker that had a very impressive beginning, and he was great. And then he like shared the whole idea after the metaphor he started with. But at the end of the presentation, what I said was like, hey, your presentation was great, but my head only got stuck with the beginning of the presentation. And then you lost my attention because it was like the balance, the power of the presentation was very not balanced. Like the beginning was a very special moment that then did this. Okay, so we must try to balance the presentation in order of what's the experience we are proposing to the audience.
Sorry,
Then
and what I'm thinking, it's also right in the same example. If I'm presenting one-on-one with my boss, or let's imagine I'm presenting in front, I'm trying to convince my whole team, right? So I have my boss and I have other team members. So I understand that the best thing I can do is to prepare my presentation, right? We can think of a beginning, a body, and an end, because the first thing I want to do is prepare for this, right? So this is very important because I think that many times people think that, oh, we can just come up with a great idea out of the blue, right? But I guess that what we really need to think is like, there's a lot of work behind this. And even if it's like for a TED Talk or a talk with our boss, or even at a meeting, like we need to prepare, right? I guess that's something very
definitely.
key.
Definitely, and also what's very interesting about what you said, Mirta, is that we tend to think the communication skills only for presentation context, in which you are the only one that shares, but we can also think about this in conversations, as you said, for example, with a boss, with a teammate. Preparing what we want to say, how we want to say it, is a key element. Even though you think like, oh my God, I'm taking time to prepare a conversation. Well, it actually determines the product of that conversation. So taking that into account is a key element, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So another thing that this could be more for presentations, but we can transpose this also to conversations. Is that people is going to remember more how they felt rather than what you said. Okay, so this is not always like that like specifically yes or yes, like this, but how we show to ourselves to the audience impacts a lot on how they will feel while listening to me. So if we have, for example, a very technical content, a very hard to understand content, and that requires a lot of attention from the audience, trying to mix emotions with technical content could be a good tool or strategy to make it more engaging. Because if we only are going to share some specific, I don't know, data, it's going to be really hard to maintain the attention from the public. So taking into account how people is going to feel while I'm sharing is as much as important as what am I going to share with the people I'm sharing this thing with. Okay, so yeah, we used to say even more, but it depends a lot of on the presentation, but that's important to take into account. Okay, so we are the hosts when we are presenting, and we must like take care of how people will feel while listening to us.
Yeah, and also for one-on-one meetings also, right? We know that the words we use and the way we say things express an emotion. So if I'm talking with my boss and all the words I'm using, for instance, relate to problem, to something super serious, like, oh, we have a super problem. If I present it in a wow way and I myself like in an alarming state, clearly my boss is gonna fear this, right? He's gonna feel this, and I'm gonna be transmitting an emotion. So also the emotion I'm transmitting, even if it's one-on-one, is super important as well, right? So I think even for presentations, but even for one-on-one, the emotional aspect of the story is super important.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, there's a very good example. What happens with our breathing, like how we breathe while presenting, determines a lot how people will feel. For example, if I'm sharing with you something that I show myself as, I need moments to have catch a big breath because I'm struggling with my breath. You will feel it. You will feel it while listening to me. You will feel
Yes.
anxious. Okay, but if I take a moment to breathe, if I just take it calmly, I said, okay, I'll go slower with my presentation. It will definitely change the emotions of the people who is listening to us. So yeah, it's a very good topic and very,
Yes.
very important to take it into account.
Yes.
Uh, Please, if anyone has any question, any commentary,
Yes, we have
take.
a question that we're gonna take in 1 minute.
Sorry, what, Emir?
We have one question, but
Ah,
I will take it in 1 minute.
perfect. Yeah, so I can continue with the presentation. So when we do presentations, something that is we used to say that is a key element for making them engaging is to have a moment of narrative tension. Okay, narrative tension, not in terms of we have to make suspense or what is the genre of our presentation. I'm not referring to that, but what I'm saying is that there must be a moment in which the people that is listening to us must ask themselves the same question that we asked ourselves when we didn't know how to solve that problem. So for example, if I'm presenting, if we are in a job interview and you ask me, for example, what's the most challenging thing that you had to solve in your last job, I'm going to share a story. Okay, so it's a moment to share a story. And in order to make it more engaging, there must be a moment in which the interviewer must enter to the story and must ask himself, okay, so how did Mateo solve this problem? Okay, there must be a moment of narrative tension in terms of asking yourself a question. And that question, what we'll do is activate your attention, the interviewer attention in this case, in order to like accommodate the information that Mateo tells me in order to reach to an answer, get to an answer of how that is going to be solved. Okay, so taking this into account is also very important for us. Well, you may think that this is very obvious, but in my opinion, it is not. Paying attention to the details is not always like knowing how I want to say a specific words, but what is important about the details is to not involve details that are not in service of the idea I want to share. So for example, if I want to share, I don't know, the importance of Argentinian mate, I have a mate here. I don't know if everyone knows it, but it's a kind of tea that we drink in Argentina. If I want to share the importance of this with you, and a key element to share this is the biography of the person that invented the Argentinian mate, I'm not going to spend time saying who was the brother of the inventor or where that inventor was born. I'm not going to share that details with you. But if there are important to the idea I want to share about the Argentinian mate, I'm going to choose that details to share them with you. Okay, so what I'm saying is we just have to choose the details we want to share specifically and strategically in order to give the audience the information they need to understand my idea. Okay, so do not waste time with details that are not relevant to the idea. And something that is very important too is try to have some previous information about the audience. Where are they from? What's their age? I don't know. What are they expecting from the space you're going to be presenting? If it's a job interview, if it's a large meeting, always take into account the length of the meeting, how much time you are going to have to present that. Okay, so that is a key element also. And last but not least is to embrace the power of stories when we want to share an idea. And why do I say this? Because stories make us less disbelieving and help and enable us to listen much better. I don't know if disbelieving is the word to say, like, nos hacen menos incrédulos, Mirta.
Yeah, I guess it makes us more, we can relate more, and therefore we can perhaps trust more or create some kind of, we're more relatable in that sense.
Yeah, like it opens stories. What stories do is like opens the hearing a lot, much more, and it creates empathy with the speaker. I'm going to share a very brief example of that now, but if you want, we can see the chat. Mir, is there anything?
Someone is asking, does a good visual content along with presentation make the presentation with the audience engaging? What are your thoughts on this?
Along with presentation make the well, the visual presentation, the visual content of the presentation from our TED perspective must be a last resource in terms of we have to, but it depends on what context are you sharing this, because if you have to share the statistics of a product and how the sales went during a quarter, you're gonna have to support your presentation on a visual content. But if you don't need that, it's also important to prepare what are you going to say, rather if you have it or not. So if you have a presentation and you have 10 slides, don't let the presentation guide your presentation. But what you have to do is you lead the presentation, and in case you need that slides, just go for them as a backup. Okay, so that's our point of view on how visual content could be useful. If you want to share a metaphor, if you want to share a very important question that you want people to be thinking while you're presenting, and you want it as a background, for example, could be a good use of that. But what we don't have to do is to let the presentation guide our storyline. It must be backwards. Our storyline must be backed up by the presentation we have. I don't know. I'm like pointing behind.
Yes, as if you had the stage behind you. Yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice, because we don't want to have a PPT or like a presentation that is basically telling everything we're saying, because otherwise someone could say, but this could have been an email, right? Like, why am I here if like the person is reading the presentation for work, for work? Even if you need to share content, then you need to create a story, and the story for your meeting with your boss or your colleagues will be like, guys, we really need to do this, or guys, let's see how much progress we've done. And so I'm going to touch on an emotion. Let's explore this a little bit more, right? One thing I want to share, because especially also considering slides, you mentioned something super interesting about the audience, right? Like really thinking about who we are talking to and getting more information. This is very important, understanding how the what the audience is waiting a little bit for, is expecting. And when we think of one-on-one in a professional setting, in my experience, my meetings with my boss really changed when I understood how she wants information to be delivered, right? When I understood that, I have the tendency to give the context and then go to the important stuff. My boss is the other way around. So she gets, okay, Mirta, you're talking too much. Like, go straight to the point. When I understood how she wanted my meetings, my communication to be, I adapted. And the day I actually did a small presentation that contained like keywords. This is our challenge and this is my solution. I didn't say this is my problem. This is the challenge. These are my 3 solutions. I remember the day I said, okay, let me show you what I prepared. And it was simply, guys, it was 3 slides, right? But I did it in the way she wanted. And I explained. She loved everything I said. And since then, my communication with my boss is much better because, and she likes the support visual key things. So she's like, oh, okay, perfect, yes. And for me, that was a revelation. So I really suggest that you explore your supervisor, your team colleagues a little bit more so you can adapt your presentations and your communication to the person who's listening, right?
Yeah, definitely. And what you can also do, for example, I have a similar case in terms of we knew that the person didn't like to see the data specifically, but we may need the data to show it while we are presenting. But what we did is just put three slides, as you said, Mir, that was going to guide the conversation. And we did an annex, for example, an annex with a lot of data that in case we needed that data, we were going to find it there. We have it only in case we need it. Okay, so yeah, that's a good point also. Yeah, great. So what was I was about to share is very briefly about the superpower of stories, because we were thinking about, okay, so what make the presentations truly engaging, right? So embracing the power of stories is what we do at TED, because if I want to share an idea with you, so for example about the James Webb telescope, that is a very technical thing. Okay, if I want to cap your attention at the beginning, at the middle, or at the end, I can use stories to get your hearing more like to get you to pay more attention. And it's not to pay more attention, it's to give me your attention. Like I lend you my attention for a while. So when we use stories, also we make the people less disbelieving. They will believe us. So let me tell you a very brief story about a couple that was at the beach on holiday, and they were very in love on a very beautiful sunset in the sea. And there was a moment in which he got out a ring from his pocket, and he said, like, will you marry me? It was a very special moment. They were at the sea, and when she said yes, he was about to put the ring in her finger, and they lost the ring. They just missed it. They tried to find it in the ocean. It was completely lost. They were very like frustrated, but they were still happy because they were going to marry. So they lost the ring in that part of the ocean. So they went back to their home country. They got married, and 15 years later, they went back to this same place where he proposed marriage, and he lost the ring. They were eating at a restaurant, and they ordered a fish. So when the fish came, the waiter brought the fish. They cut it in half, and guess what he found inside of the fish? Let me please say what you think in the chat. What did they find inside of the fish? Okay, the ring. Everyone said, oh yeah, of course. 15 years later, they found the ring. So let me tell you how this ended. No, they didn't find the ring. They didn't. And actually, it's very not probable for that to happen. Okay, so what stories make us is to believe that 15
but
years
for
later,
the sake of the story, we want the fish to have the ring.
of course, we want that to happen. We imagine that could happen. But when we think like, is this possible? It's definitely not possible, because a year, a fish doesn't live like for 15 years. It's very less, like there's a very low probability for that to happen. But what stories do is to make us think that that is possible, okay? So when we share stories with others, people like are less disbelieving with us, and they create a context of understanding and believing of what I'm going to share with you, okay? Sorry if you thought that it was the ring, but it's a very useful story to share the power of stories. But that was the main idea of what I was going to share.
Amazing.
So yeah, that are some key points of how to make presentations engaging.
And so if we talk a little bit about career success, right? We talk about professional development, communication. How do you think that public speaking skills, communication skills can contribute to our career success?
Well, let me see something I was pointing about this. So in terms of so sorry, Mir, the question was how can public speaking help in terms of professional development, right?
Yes. Why is it
I
important to have your public speaking skills polished?
yeah, I think there are many points of this in terms of personal life and professional life too. Just let me tell you an anecdote of a student that we used to coach at Clubes TED-Ed, that is more answering to the personal point of view on how important is public speaking. So at the beginning of the process, we received a very shy person that was found it very hard to speak to other ones. And when he finished the process of Clubes TED, he said, like, after doing Clubes TED, now I can order bread at the bakery. I can speak to the bakery owner and say to him what I want. Okay, so this is a very like small example of how important how public speaking help in very common issues, very common aspects of our life. That kid was very shy, as shy, like he was so shy that he couldn't order bread at the bakery. I know it's a very extreme example, but after understanding how to share an idea, how to share a request, how to share what I want, uh, that person found himself in his personal life much more comfortable with the moments in which he had to use his voice. So in personal aspects, public speaking can help a lot. And as you said, Mir, we are not always talking about presentations, but also about conversations with our parents, with our couple, with our boss. And that helps us a lot in terms of how to organize our ideas. So another very important thing that I think that can be helpful in terms of professional development is that when we prepare a presentation, we ask ourselves a lot of questions, and we learn how to ask questions in order to create a great speech or a great presentation. And for example, if you go to a job interview, what I found in my personal experience is that sometimes while you are at the interview, interviewers ask you a lot of questions, okay? And we used to give them answers. But also what helps a lot, and I think that is very valued while you're at a job interview, is what questions do we make to the interviewer? Because that lets the interviewer see what am I thinking about, what is important for me, and what do I want to know about the place I'm going to. And the interviewer will think like, okay, this person has very relevant questions. So that is a very, very good, very important element. How to make good questions is an important topic about this too. And also, in my personal opinion, is like public speaking helps you organize ideas, helps you organize a narrative structure, and helps you think about who is going to listen to you. So that's important in a like in my life, in every aspect of my life. Organizing how I'm going to communicate to the other person is like a key success for make better bonds rather either if they are professional, personal, or whatever. Organizing my communication makes me organize my own head and my own ideas. So it's a key component also.
Well, preparation, organization is key for everything, especially for a job interview. And before we go specifically to that point, preparation is essential. And me as a coach, we say that in coaching, everything is a conversation. Basically, human interaction comes in a conversation. We can, of course, we have a body, we can communicate through our gestures and body and our facial expressions, but as human beings, to coordinate actions, we need to speak. Everything, a relationship is a conversation. So clearly, having a good conversation is super important. And in order to have a good conversation is essential many times to prepare and understand what we want to say. What is my goal, right? What do I want to get out of this conversation? So once again, preparing the conversation with your boss, right? Like having an outline with the main points you want to share. You have a difficult conversation with your partner, right? There's something you didn't like and it's a sensitive topic. So probably you want to reflect and think, how do I phrase this the best so she doesn't get offended and then the conversation explodes and we can no longer speak, right? So thinking what we want to say, how we want to say, with which emotion is super important for every conversation. And for job conversations like job interviews, not only it will show that we care and we took the time to be there in a professional manner, of course, it will give us the opportunity to share better answers, right? And the good thing is like for interviews, we can nowadays ask ChatGPT to give us a lot of questions that we may be receiving in a job interview. And I'm interested about the answer. We know that in interviews we may have these kind of questions that are called behavioral questions. The goal is to understand your behavior, meaning what you did, how you behaved, how you acted in the past. And these are the kind of questions that come with the form of tell me about a time that, right? For instance, let's imagine, tell me about a time that you overcame a challenge successfully. Or in this case, the tell me will likely ask me for a story, right? So how can I use a story to answer this question or these kind of questions, right?
Yeah. So at TED we use an activity that is called storytelling. Storytelling, sorry, signature story. That we help students and speakers to choose what are the most relevant stories they have in their life to share the idea they want to share. So I can share with you this activity just very briefly for you to know how do we help students and speakers to choose what stories are they going to tell. So just going back to the question, how can we use storytelling in a storytelling approach in job interviews in the cases like tell me a moment you found or you solved a very hard challenge, for example. So how to choose a good story to tell the other ones. So sometimes what we do here in this activity is to think about a list of 10 stories that I used to tell about myself or that are related to the topic I'm going to be interviewed about. And out of that list, I'm going to start applying filters that help me choose what's the better story, okay? So I'm going to make a cross next to the stories that are more important for me. So first, relevance. Then I'm going to make a circle in the stories that I appear as the main character. They must be things that we were the main character. So if we didn't appear in the story, the plot wouldn't be the same. That's very important that we are the main character of that story. Of course, you can have a cross, a circle, a triangle. You must choose the one that has more symbols. Then also you can make a triangle next to the ones that have the most emotional content. So the criteria here is what's going to be more emotional or will awake more emotions in the person that is going to listen the story. So emotion is not like I want to make you cry, but I can also make you like feel suspense. I can make you feel indignation, laughter, sadness, or any other emotion. It's not linked to a specific emotion. And also make a square next to the stories that show or tell something about your skills. So what we do is to choose the story that has the most amount of symbols. If you have, for example, 3 stories with 4 symbols, you can choose the one that you like the most, and then create a script to tell the story in 2 minutes. Okay, so you're gonna use the timer of your phone and you're gonna try to say it in 2 minutes. Okay, once you said it, if you had like resting time, you're gonna think, okay, so I'm gonna try to make it in 2 minutes because I want to practice different scenarios. So how can I make this story richer? For example, what details can I give the audience to listen to this story, for example? No, so you're gonna try to get it to 2 minutes, and once you did that, or for example, in case you needed 2 minutes 30 seconds to tell the story, well, you're gonna have to make it shorter. Okay, so once you did that, what you're gonna try is to create a script to tell that story in 1 minute. Okay, so 1 minute is very different, and what like you're gonna have like half time to tell the same story, so you're gonna have to leave aside a lot of details, a lot of things that may be relevant in 2 minutes, but now they are not. So we must try to think, what's the most important message I want to give with this story? And once you created the script to tell the story in 1 minute, I'm gonna ask you to create a script to tell the story in 1 sentence. Okay, so what happens if the same story must be told in a sentence? Usually what we think is like it's going to be similar to a title, for example. If what's the title of my story? And that's a way to differentiate when we do a summary rather than when we do a synthesis of the idea that we want to share. Okay, so with this, what helps us this activity is to understand what's the main idea, what's the main message of the story I'm going to share with the interviewer. So yeah, this could be a good approach. I'm trying to bring the tools that we use at TED to share with you. Of course, Mir, if you have another one, you can share it with the audience. But the signature story, the choosing of my personal story is very useful for us to share ideas.
Mateo, I feel that I started talking to you like 5 minutes ago, but we only have 5 minutes left. You can imagine?
Yeah.
This is amazing. So this is a moment for questions. And I have a very interesting question from the audience. Do you have any ideas about how we can use storytelling for networking?
For network, that's a good question. Maybe you can help me with that one, Mir. I may have some intuition, but in my opinion, what I just shared with you, like to have different lengths of stories or of ideas that you want to share with the other people, and to choose specifically what the other want to know about you is very important, and it will help you in different scenarios. For example, the famous elevator pitch, you're gonna have like 30 seconds maximum to tell the other one what you want from him, and what he or she can have from you. So
Yes.
always taking into account the length, the audience that we are talking to, the scenario in which we are going to talk about is very important for networking, for trying to reach a person that you don't know yet, and that you're gonna have one opportunity to share that person what you're doing or what you're needing.
I really liked what you said about having different speeches, different stories. Why this is important? Because, well, first of all, preparation, right? To have something prepared with different length, knowing that when I'm going to introduce myself to someone, then there's something specific I need to say. This person probably won't have a lot of time. If we have, the better. But usual times, we only have just a specific amount of time to introduce ourselves. Or even if it's for a LinkedIn message, right? We're not going to send 3 paragraphs like these, like, no. So we need to understand that we need to be short. At the same time, I like what you said about having different stories. Why? Because depending on who I'm speaking with, what I'm going to share may change, and also may change the story of myself. For instance, I wear many hats. I am a coach, I'm a teacher, I teach at university, I have one-on-one conversations. I also manage programs and projects. I also teach languages. So I do many things. I cannot come and say, hi, I'm blah, 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 too much. I see, okay, this person, am I considering in the context of my coaching, or my career coaching? Then my introduction will probably go in the line of I help young adults have clarity on their next professional steps through coaching calls, right? Because I'm going to this specific person regarding this area I'm interested in. If I were to speak with someone different in another context or more on the areas of education or project management, then probably my storytelling, my presentation would also change. So that's a good one to have different speeches prepared for our different situations, right? So I would like to know from the audience if you have a question or if you can share your takeaway from this session. Meanwhile, talking about LinkedIn and networking, we invite you to connect with Mateo on LinkedIn. Remember, super important, use this everything we're learning to apply to your professional development. When you connect with Mateo, send them a small text, and maybe that can be your small presentation, right? Your small story. Maybe it's like, hi, I watched your webinar and this is my main takeaway. It was really interesting because I study computer science and the got blah, blah, blah. I don't know, something you want to share with Mateo. I think this is a good opportunity to practice. So I'm reading here, someone is sharing a takeaway. My biggest takeaway is understanding the importance of organization and preparation. I like that one.
Great takeaway.
I like that one because that's the key, like preparing, organizing, even if it's for a TED Talk in front of an audience, or even if it's for your supervisor, for a loved one, a friend, someone you need to communicate. It is always good when it's an important conversation and I want this conversation to go well, then it's really important to prepare. Okay? Do we have any other takeaway? Let's see. Okay, someone is sharing here. I like the idea of taking into account the emotion I want to create in the public.
Great
also,
great takeaway.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. And also for professional context, right? And then also, I love the information about the key elements. Very insightful. So one last idea you want to share with us, Mateo, before we leave?
Well, no, thank you very much for the invitation. I love talking about this topic. So if anyone has any question and needs advice or wants to share something that you are doing, you can share it with me through LinkedIn. I'll be happy to hear about you. Hope that this was helpful for you. It's really helpful for me, as I said, in a lot of contexts of my life, not only the professional one. So hope you've enjoyed it and you find it useful for your life, and specifically for your next steps in the professional career. Yeah, that's all. Thank you, Mir, for the space.
Thank you, Mateo. This has been very, very interesting. You know how time flies. I could speak a long time, right? So I don't know if someone wants to share something. There was a mic open. Okay. So, well, everywhere in the world where you are, I wish you a wonderful day or night, whatever time zone you are, and hope to see you again in our next webinar. And please share your feedback. We're sharing the form here so we can keep on improving. Thank you. Muchas gracias, Mateo. It's been a pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for having been here today with us.
Gracias, Mir. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.